In the tense atmosphere of the Cold War, when every second could decide the fate of nations, one jet roared through the skies carrying America's promise of power and precision, the F-101 Voodoo. This aircraft was more than just metal and fire, it was a statement to the world that the United States would never be caught unprepared. Welcome to Wings of War, the channel where we bring you the legends of the sky, stories of speed, power, and courage. Today, we dive into the history of one of the most mysterious and underrated jets in aviation history, the McDonnell F-101 Voodoo, a fighter that stood as both a symbol of fear and freedom, truly earning its place among the real kings of the sky. The F-101 Voodoo was born out of necessity and ambition. In the early 1950s, the U.S. Air Force needed a fast, long-range escort fighter capable of keeping up with the new generation of jet bombers. McDonnell Aircraft, already making its name with the F-2H Banshee and other naval aircraft, took up the challenge. The result was a sleek, twin-engine fighter that would go on to serve in multiple roles, from escort and reconnaissance to nuclear deterrence. It was the perfect combination of beauty and brute force, a jet that looked as deadly as it was. When the F-101 first took flight in 1954, it was unlike anything the world had seen. Its long fuselage, swept-back wings, and twin-tail design gave it an aggressive and futuristic look. But what really set it apart was its power. Two Pratt & Whitney J57 turbojet engines pushed the Voodoo to speeds exceeding Mach 1.7, nearly 1,200 miles per hour, at a time when most fighters struggled to even break the sound barrier. The sheer speed and acceleration made it one of the fastest operational jets in the U.S. Air Force. It was built to dominate the skies. The Voodoo's first role was to escort the giant B-36 and B-47 bombers deep into enemy territory. However, the strategy soon shifted with the arrival of intercontinental ballistic missiles and more advanced bomber designs. The Air Force adapted quickly, transforming the F-101 into a new type of weapon, a supersonic interceptor capable of delivering nuclear payloads if necessary. This change in mission defined the Voodoo's legacy. It became the ultimate guardian of the American homeland. Armed with nuclear-tipped air-to-air missiles, the F-101B Interceptor variant became a central figure in the U.S. and Canadian air defense systems. It worked closely with radar networks to track and destroy potential Soviet threats. Its radar and fire control systems were advanced for their time, allowing pilots to detect, lock on, and engage targets at long range, day or night. The Voodoo's mission was simple but critical. If enemy bombers ever crossed into North America, it would be the first to rise and the last to fall. The F-101 wasn't just fast, it was beautiful in motion. Its long, narrow body cut through the sky with grace and power. The aircraft could climb at an astonishing rate, reaching altitudes above 50,000 feet with ease. Pilots often described flying the Voodoo as riding a missile, smooth, powerful, and exhilarating. At high speeds, it handled with surprising stability, a testament to McDonnell's brilliant aerodynamic engineering. But like all early supersonic jets, it also demanded respect. One wrong move, and the pilot could find himself fighting the controls at deadly speeds. One of the most iconic variants was the RF-101 reconnaissance version, which traded weapons for cameras. These unarmed aircraft flew deep into enemy territory during the Cold War, capturing vital intelligence. During the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, the RF-101s played a critical role by providing high-resolution photographs of Soviet missile sites in Cuba, proof that changed the course of history. Those missions were some of the most dangerous flights ever undertaken, but the Voodoo pilots carried them out with fearless precision. Another chapter of the F-101's story was written in Southeast Asia. When the Vietnam War erupted, RF-101s were among the first U.S. jets deployed for reconnaissance missions. They flew unarmed into hostile skies filled with anti-aircraft fire and enemy fighters, relying only on speed and altitude to survive. These missions provided essential data for bombing campaigns and ground operations. Many pilots risked their lives daily, and some never returned, but their courage cemented the Voodoo's place in combat history. The Voodoo's speed records were equally legendary. In 1957, it set a world record by flying from Los Angeles to New York in just over 3 hours, averaging over 780 miles per hour, an incredible feat for that era. It proved not just American innovation, but the capability of the aircraft to perform under extreme pressure. Even today, aviation enthusiasts regard that record as one of the defining achievements of the Cold War jet age. What made the F-101 unique wasn't just its performance, it was its versatility. It evolved from escort fighter to interceptor to reconnaissance aircraft, adapting to the changing needs of the Air Force. Few aircraft in history have managed to serve so many roles across decades while remaining effective. It was this adaptability that made the Voodoo a cornerstone of U.S. air defense during the 1950s and 1960s. But the Voodoo also had a reputation for being demanding. It was not an easy jet to fly. Its long fuselage and powerful engines made it prone to pitch instability at high speeds, and pilots had to be skilled and cautious. Yet, for those who mastered it, the experience was unforgettable. The feeling of pushing the throttle forward and watching the Mach meter climb past 1.5 was described as pure adrenaline, like commanding the thunder itself. In Canada, the F-101 served with distinction in the Royal Canadian Air Force as part of NORAD's Joint Defence Mission. Canadian pilots flew the CF-101 variant from bases across North America, standing ready around the clock to intercept any potential Soviet intruder. For decades, these jets patrolled the northern skies, often in extreme weather conditions, forming the backbone of continental defense. Even after retirement, Canadian pilots spoke of the Voodoo with reverence, not as a machine, but as a trusted partner. By the late 1970s, the world was changing. Newer aircraft like the F-4 Phantom II and F-15 Eagle took over the interceptor and reconnaissance roles, and the F-101 began its farewell flight. It had served with honor for more than 2 decades, a remarkable lifespan for a jet of its generation. When it finally left active service, it did so with pride, a legend that had fulfilled every mission it was given. Today, only a few F-101 Voodoos remain, displayed in museums or standing proudly at old airbases as silent guardians of history. Their sleek frames and distinctive twin tails remind us of a time when every flight carried the weight of global tension, when the world held its breath and looked to the skies for safety. The sound of its engines, the glow of its afterburners, and the silhouette of its wings cutting through the horizon are memories that refuse to fade. The legacy of the F-101 is not just in its missions or its records, it's in the message it carried. It represented a generation of aircraft built to protect peace through power, to guard nations by owning the skies. It was the embodiment of Cold War determination, fast, fierce, and unyielding. Pilots who flew it knew they were part of something extraordinary. They didn't just fly an aircraft. They flew history. When we look back at the Voodoo today, it stands as a reminder that true greatness is not always loud or famous. Sometimes, it's silent, hidden in hangars and photographs, living on in the stories of the men who flew it. The F-101 Voodoo may not have been the most celebrated jet, but it was one of the most important, a fighter that carried America's strength into the heavens and brought it back safely time and time again. In the end, the F-101 Voodoo was more than a weapon. It was a protector, a symbol of courage, and a machine that redefined what flight could be. From the icy runways of Canada to the jungles of Vietnam, from sonic booms over the Atlantic to silent reconnaissance missions over enemy lines, the Voodoo proved itself again and again. It truly was one of the real kings of the sky. This is Wings of War, where we bring to life the stories of jets that shaped history. The McDonnell F-101 Voodoo, a masterpiece of speed, strength, and purpose. A fighter that guarded the free world from the shadows, and a true legend among the real kings of the sky.